Hello and welcome to the first AutoCAD 2016 session. I have decided to put this tutorial as a supplement to the classroom session. So instead of the 3 hours lesson, what was discussed, the highlight of the lesson, into a smaller chunk. And I also decided to put this on YouTube so that if it helps anyone, that's well and good. So this is AutoCAD 2016, and I'm going to assume that you have not seen AutoCAD before. So we start by going to menu or start, and I'll select new. And AutoCAD opens up this template folder, and I'm going to choose AutoCAD ISO. And the reason I'm going to choose AutoCAD ISO is here in UK we use millimeters and basically metric system. So AutoCAD ISO is matrix, whereas if I choose AutoCAD without ISO, that will be inches imperial. So I'm going to select AutoCAD ISO and we say open. When AutoCAD opens for first time, I believe it's going to be a black background like this. So I personally don't like the black background because sometimes it's quite difficult to see what's going on. So I'm going to change this into a white background, and to do so I will do right click and select options. Then I'll go to display tab, colors, and then color for the background, and I'll choose white, apply and close, apply, OK. The next thing is I don't like to see these grids, so I could click onto this or F7 and that will get rid of the grid system. So it will be easier for me to see. Now the way AutoCAD works is, you interact with AutoCAD all the time. And the way you interact AutoCAD is via this command line. So what this command line does is when you ask for something, let's say for example you ask for a circle, then it will ask you what to do next. So let me just show you. So if I want a circle, I say I want a circle, and the command line tells me circle, specify the center point for the circle or other options. So the first thing is asking me is where do you want to draw this circle? So I could choose anywhere on this screen for now, but later on we'll go more precisely where we want to draw. So I could say I want to start the circle here, and then the next question would be specify the radius of the circle. So what is the size of the circle? That's what AutoCAD is asking me. So I could say I want the circle to be 500 millimeter in radius or 1000 diameter. So this is how you interact with AutoCAD. So you always interact with AutoCAD using this command line. So for the next few sessions, it's important you always watch out what is the AutoCAD is asking based on what you have asked AutoCAD to do. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm going to dock this. Yes, right now it's floating, so I'm going to dock to this line, and so that we can see more of the question that was asked. So we asked for a circle, and AutoCAD said, okay, where do you want the circle to be? And we selected using the mouse, and then we specify the radius. So that's how you talk to AutoCAD. So this is, like I said, it's the graphics area. On top we have what we call ribbon system. We got the draw ribbon, we got modify, we got annotation, layers, and so on. And then of course we got tab, which is a home tab, the insert tab, annotate, and then parametric. So we will see all this in the next few weeks. So to start off now, to see how AutoCAD works, before I start actually talking about AutoCAD, is I wanted to show you these draw tools. So under the draw tools, whether it's AutoCAD or other packages such as SolidWorks and so on, people have done research and they came to a conclusion. Most of the shape that you see with your eyes will be based on a line or an arc or a circle. Of course, we do have organic shapes, but you could define most of the objects that you see using line or an arc or a circle. So what you have to do is always, you look at an object and then you defined which side is a line, which one will be an arc or a circle, and so on. So that's it. Sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, what happens then is we need to modify those lines and circles. Yeah, so we could maybe create a fleet again. That's really creating kind of like an arc or a circle to an edge. So we could modify them. So this lesson, the first lesson, will focus on the draw and the modify tools. And of course, the next lesson will look at other tools. So we have seen how we interact with AutoCAD. So we interact AutoCAD using command line. Based on the tools we have selected, AutoCAD will ask us a question. So let's see with the line. So how does it work? So we could go and click onto a line, and AutoCAD will ask me line. So that's what I have selected. Specify the first point of the line. So the question is, where do you want to start the line? So I could say I want to start a line somewhere here. And the next question is, what's the next point? Or where do you want to finish the line? So I could actually go straight line. Either I could select by clicking, or I could type in the value. So maybe if I want to move by 200 or 2000, I could just type 2000 and press enter. And that line would be now a line with 2000 diameter. 2000 millimeter. So it says 2000. So well and good. So what happens if I want a circle? So if I want a circle, I will click onto a circle. You'll ask me the question, circle, specify the circle. So the question is, where do you want to start the circle? So anywhere. I could say I want to start the circle. And then the next question is, what is the size of the circle in terms of right now radius? So the radius could be, let's say, 250. Now, if you want to draw a rectangle, it's slightly different. And what makes it different is the sequence of the action that we do will be very similar, but we have to enter two values. So that's what makes the rectangle slightly different. So you say, I want a rectangle. There you go. It says, okay, rectangle, specify the first corner. So again, it's telling me where do you want to start this rectangle. So I would say I want to start the rectangle here. The next question you'll ask me is, where do you want to finish the rectangle? So I could select and click somewhere. If I do so, then what happens is it's not based on a specific value, but it's based on my cursor. So on the screen, you could see there's two values. There's one value, which is 992.78. And then, of course, next to it, there's another value, which is 554.53. And this is the Y value. So the first value, what's been highlighted with blue, is the X value, so moving in X direction. And the Y, the other value, which is the grade value, is the Y going up. So in this case, if I want X to be 1000, I'll type 1000. Then I could press comma, not dot, comma, or a tab on your keyboard. So either a comma, if I press a comma, can you see the first value, 1000, is locked? Now it's asking me what is the height. Yeah. So in this case, the Y value. So I could say the Y value is also 1000, and that will make it a square. So X, from this point, we went by 1000, and we went up by 1000. So we then typed in 1000, comma, by 1000. Okay, so this is it. This is how you create a line and a circle and a rectangle. And based on these shapes, of course, there's one more shape, which is the ellipse, which we'll see that later on. Based on these shapes, we could create most of the shape that we see with our eyes. That's the idea. Now, the modify tools are quite interesting because what they do is they modify the drawing tools. So let's say, for example, if you want this rectangle to have kind of like not this sharp corner or 90-degree corner, but if you want some sort of circle, then we could use this tool called fleet. Now, again, you need to see what's going on in the command line. So if I want to use fleet, so I'd say I want fleet, and AutoCAD will say to me, okay, fleet, select the first object. Now there's one problem here. The problem is, okay, we could select an object, but if you look at the settings, right now the mode is trim, so it's to trim, which I'll explain in a minute, but the radius which I'm interested is 0. So if we go and create, say we want to make a radius or an arc here or a circle, that value is 0. So the first thing what we need to do is we could type R, or we could click on radius, one of the two. So we want to change the radius value. In order to do so, we click onto radius, and then we type here the value. So we type in, let's say for example, 100, and then we press enter. But never write R100. AutoCAD will reply you saying that's invalid command, because AutoCAD does not understand two things at the same time. So it does not understand radius 100. So you have to say radius first, then you press enter, then you type 100, and then you press enter. Then AutoCAD now comes back to the first question it was asking you, select the object. So the first object. So if you want the arc to be between this line and this line, so you could select this and that gives you that radius of 100. So if you want to do again on this side, what you need to do is you need to say I want fleet. The radius value now is, can you see, is 100. So I could type radius again, so or click on R or type R, and I could type here 250 and I press enter. And then I could say between this line and this line, and that's how you use the fleet modifier. Okay, so far so good. There is another modifier. Let's say for example we want to create a door symbol. If you want to create a door symbol, we start off with a circle, which we have here. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a line command, and I'm going to bring my cursor to that point. So now if I go and select that point, I have got a problem because it's not definitely on the circle. So what we need to do is we could actually bring some tools to help me identify that point. Right now there is an X, and that's intersect. But what I could do is I could ask AutoCAD to show me some other tools to help me identify that point, that quadrant. Yeah. And to do so, what I could do is right here we have something called snap. There's a square and a dot. You click onto it and you could say I want to see the quadrant. These are snaps. Snaps are there to snap onto an object. So right now an endpoint is on and the center point is on, and because of that it shows me where the center is. But the midpoint is not on and the quadrant is not on. So if I say I want the quadrant and the midpoint, and let's try now. So I want a line, and when I come to that point there is this green square or a diamond shape, and that is the quadrant. You see, AutoCAD is trying to help me to show me where the quadrant is. If this is switched off, then it becomes very difficult for me to see that quadrant point. So let's switch it off and see. So I could switch off the quadrant line, and I could assume where it is, somewhere in here. Yeah, sorry, actually it's snapped to the center, so the center is highlighted, so that's one of the problem. Okay, so if I say I don't want to see the center for now as well, and if I say line to that point, it seems like I found it. You see, now the center is gone, so I don't know where the center is. So that itself is a problem. But if I start zooming onto that point, you will see soon it's not on the line, it's actually above the line. So what we need to do in this case is use the snap tools to help us identify certain points on the object. And so for that reason, we need to use always snaps. So in this case, I'm going to switch the center back on and a quadrant. And so I could say I want a line between that point, the center, and that quadrant point. Okay, and I press enter, or you press escape on your keyboard, and that will terminate off the command. So the whole idea was to show you how you could use this tool called trim, the trim modifier, to create the door symbols. So that I could go now and say I want to trim, and AutoCAD. I keep on SolidWorks saying SolidWorks. Sometimes you will hear me saying CATIA, and the reason is because I use those softwares all the time, daytime. So sometimes I get a mix-up between these softwares. So the whole idea is to show you how to use a trim command. So when you say I want to trim, AutoCAD will ask you trim, select the object to trim. But there's some problem with the trim if I go and use it straight away. So for now, in the next few weeks, I'll explain you in detail how the trim works, because this is just a highlight of how AutoCAD works, this lesson. For now, I'll press enter. Once I press enter, from now on, what that enter does is, from now on, anything that I touch, any line I touch, is subject to trim. So you can see when I come to that line, it shows me that the X sign, so it means it's going to delete that part. But it's not going to delete this, can you see? And I'll explain you why that is in a minute. But this is more or less like a door symbol. So in this case, what I need to do with this line, because we cannot trim it, we just delete. And so that's a symbol for a door. So you could see how we could use the drawing tool, two drawing tools, and then one modifier tools in order to create these symbols. So that's basically how AutoCAD works. So earlier on I said I'm going to explain you how the trim command works, and the trim command works this way. If we have a line, and if we got this another line, and if we want to trim this line, what AutoCAD needs is, or the trim command needs is, so you say trim, press enter. If I select this line will be trimmed until that point. Can you see that? AutoCAD needs a trimming line, and that's the reason you need to have more than one line in order to use the trim command. So if I select that line, that side will be deleted. If I select this line will be deleted up to that point. And so that line will be used as a trimming edge. So I select that, so that's been trimmed. I select this line, and that will be trimmed. But this, we cannot trim them, because there's nothing that is actually crossing each other or touching. So in this case, we just have no choice but to go and delete these two lines. Okay, so that is the very basic of how you create an object, and also how you could use modify. So if I could recap so far with what we have done, or what we have seen, in order to create, or in order to use AutoCAD, you need to interact using this command line. And based on your request, so if you want to draw a circle, it will ask you, circle, where do you want to start the circle? Then you select a specific point where you want to draw the circle, and then the next question will be, what is the size of the circle? Line, the same thing. When you say I want a line, it will ask you, where do you want the line to start, and what is the size of the line? Rectangle, slightly different, but same idea. So you say I want a rectangle, it will ask you, where do you want to start the rectangle, and then where do you want to finish the rectangle. But with rectangle, you need to input two values, the X value and the Y value. Okay, and also we saw how we could use the flit command. And if you want to use the flit command, you say I want flit, but you need to check for the settings. So when you say flit, in this case, you could say the radius. You need to check this the settings. So what is the radius? So the first thing you need to do is you need to put the radius. So in this case, let's say for example I could type R for radius, press enter, and I could type R100. And because I typed R100, AutoCAD will not understand this instruction, because AutoCAD is asking for one thing, which is just the radius value, not to write R100. So if I press R100, AutoCAD comes back and tells me this is an invalid tool or invalid command. So you could see I typed R100 and it came back saying that no, this is wrong. So I need to type just 100, and when I press enter it says okay, now I can understand, and that's why it went and changed from 250 to 100. The next question is I need to go and select those two lines. Now there are other options. Remember, for most of the tools that we used there was something else. When I say something else, say for example when you want a rectangle, it will ask you rectangle, specify the first corner, or, you see, or something else. There are other options that you could use. So we'll see those in the next session, after I've showed you the mirror. So I'm just going to show you one more modified tools. In this case is mirror. Let's say for example you've been asked to draw a door symbol but for a double door. So of course you have another, well, one of the options is you could go and draw a circle and a line and so on and so on, or you could use this tool called mirror to create one of these, or copy one of these and then flip it over. So that's basically what it does. It copies this object and then it flips it over. So this is how it works. First you say I want to mirror, and then AutoCAD will reply you with an instruction, and in this case it says mirror and it's bold and highlight, so that's showing you what command you have selected, and it says select objects with S. So what it means is you could select this object, these two objects, and because it says with objects with S, still is waiting for you. So if you finish selecting the objects, you need to say to the AutoCAD that I have finished selecting by pressing enter. So when you press enter, AutoCAD knows that you have finished selecting. And the next question it will ask you is where is the center point? So really, where is this mirror access point, the center point for it? So you could say from this point straight up. And when you click onto that point, it will ask you, do you want me to delete the source? In this case the answer is no, so I'll click on to no, and I get this symbol of double door symbols. So you could see how we could use a circle, basic shape, and a line, and that gives us a door symbol. And then again by using the modifier tool mirror, that gives us the other side, or a flip version of this symbol, in order for us to get a double door. Okay, so there's a few. This is really the very basic of how AutoCAD works. Later on we are going to see in more detail many other tools, but this is just to give you kind of like a feel of how AutoCAD does the job. So one more thing that I wanted to talk about is rectangle. And remember what I said is it will say specify the first corner, so where do you want to start? But there is also something called or. So we could actually create chamfer, elevation, fleet, thickness, width. So these are some of the options. So in order, not only could allow us to create a rectangle, but it could also do something for us to that rectangle. So let's say for example if we say fleet, so instead of me selecting the the starting point, I said flit, and then it does ask me, well, what is the radius? Yes, the radius of the flit. So what it's telling me is I could also create you a rectangle with a flit command within it. So in this case, I could say a radius of 100 for argument's sake. Now the radius is changed to 100, and then it will ask me, where do you want to start again? So I could say I want to start here, and then you could see what's the size of the rectangle. So I could say the rectangle is now 1000 comma by 1000. So same square. Oops, sorry, I said by 100. So let's do this again. So rectangle. Now I don't have to go and change anything, because look, rectangle, the mode is flit with 100, so it tells me straight away. So I could start here. X is 1000 comma by 1000. So I created that square, same as the one I created earlier on, but this time the square is being created using the flit command and the radius of 100. So it's worth seeing whenever you select a tool, what is the OR option. So yes, you could create a circle, but there is also OR something else. So in this case, let's say for example I select the rectangle, and then it says the circle, and the next question it says is what is the radius of that circle or the diameter. You see, if you want to specify the diameter of the circle instead of the radius, you could actually click onto diameter or just type D, and then you could type in the diameter, saying this diameter is 1000. There you go. So that's the way it works. Now the problem with that rectangle, by the way, next time when you want to create a rectangle, just remember the flit radius is set to 100, so it will always create you a rectangle with a radius of 100. Maybe that's what you want, maybe that's not what you want. But if that's the case, if you don't want it, what you need to do is you need to go to flit and you need to type back to 0, and that will give you a rectangle. Okay, so far so good. So far what we have done is we have seen how you could create lines, circles, and rectangles using this by clicking onto the icon. But you could also not necessarily click onto the icon, you could type in the letter. So you could say line and you could press enter, and what AutoCAD does is exactly the same thing. This is like equivalent to click onto a line. He will ask you to specify the line. So you could say that starting point is there, the end point could be 500. If you want a circle, you could type circle, or you could type C for circle, and you press enter. And then it will ask you the question, where do you want to start a circle? You say I want to start a circle somewhere, and you could end the circle with I don't know, 200 radius. Now sometimes, let's say for example you want to copy an object. There's a copy, so I could click onto a copy, but also I could type copy. So now we have seen that it's possible to write the command, but the shortcut for copy would be CO. C would be for a circle, CO would be for a copy, so I could type just CO. And then you could see the same thing is asking me select object. Earlier on, if you remember, we did a mirror command, and when I said I want to mirror something, it says select objects. So same thing now, so things are repeating now. So in this case, I'm going to copy, it says select object. What object? This is the object. And because there is S, it's waiting for more object to be selected. If you have finished selecting the object, you need to press enter. Now the question is, from where to where do you want to move this? So you could say I want to move from the center, that's your reference point, to the end point of there, or to somewhere. So you could say I want to move to this point, and the copy command is still active, so you could copy it as much as you want. Yeah, and when you finish, you say enter and you will stop. So this is how you use the copy command. Okay, in the classroom we also looked at something, one more modifier, and that was the array tool. So in order to use array, I gave an example of when you create that sync. So I'm going to show you again the same way. So in this case, I'm going to draw a rectangle. This rectangle will be 100 comma by 50. So x is 100, y is 50. So there it is. And what I want to do is I want to create an array of these rectangles, and the best way is really to show you using, this is how I explained this in the classroom. Just going to open this up. Yeah, so there it is. So in the classroom what I showed you was that you could have this rectangle, and this rectangle was 100, so exactly the same thing like this one. So this way is x is 100 and y is 50. And what I said in the classroom is AutoCAD always calculate everything from this point, and we call this BL, bottom left. So if we want an array of these rectangles, so we want quite a few of these rectangles, yeah, and this way, what AutoCAD does is it will start calculating things from this point. So from this point to this point, from the BL to that point is 50, and if you want a gap of, let's say for example 20, we need to type for y value, so y, or in this case not even y, this will be a column, this will be 70. So the reason we put 70 is 50 plus 20 is 70. And again the same thing, whatever gap you want, so I'm going to use different color. So for the row, actually I should write row, for the row, in this case if the gap is, or this is row is equal to the x value either way, this way, let's say we want 30, this will be 130, and that's 100 plus 30, that's what gives us this value. So that's how it works. Just remember this BL for now, that's all. Okay, so we go and click onto array. Can you see that? Same thing like repeats. So things start repeating now. So it's asking me exactly the same thing. Select the object. What do you want to array? This is what I want to array. And it's waiting for more than one object just in case. So if you have finished selecting, you press enter. And in this version, not in this version actually, I believe from 2012 onwards, we have this ribbon. Before we used to have a window will open up. So for the column, it says here we got 4 columns, and the between them is 150. So remember, this is 100 plus we want the gap to be 30. So we need to type here. So if you remember, this is 30 we want, and here is 150. So we need to type 130 because it's 30. So here we type in 130 and press enter. And for the rows, yeah. Sorry, I said actually X. So I do beg your pardon. This is supposed to be the X value. This is not row actually. That's the row. So y is the row, and this is supposed to be, x is supposed to be the column value. Yeah, so this is the columns. And sorry for my handwriting, I'm trying to use the mouse to write. So for row, there is a 3 rows, like we could type 4 rows again, and the gap between them, remember that's 50 plus we want 20, is that right? We typed in 20, so we need to type in 70 here. So I need to type no 75, that's 70, we press enter, and that's it. So let's go and check this using the linear tool. Dimension, so that should be 20, that's good, and that should be 30, and of course we know that's 100. Okay, so these are some of the things that we have seen. Of course, we also have seen how AutoCAD does when you draw a line at an angle. And maybe I could show you that, and the rest I'll create another video. So if you want to create a line, we know that you say line, and that's a straight line. But let's say, suppose you want to create a line at a specific angle. So we need to say line. In fact, it would be a good idea if I could just explain the theory behind it. Okay, this is how AutoCAD works. If I want a line, I could draw a line this way. I could draw a line. And the way AutoCAD works is, I'm sorry, that's not what I want to do. The way AutoCAD works is, we call this 0. We call that 90. We call this 180. And that's 270. This is the grid system, and we are working anti-clockwise. AutoCAD also calls this east, and that's north, that's west, and that's south. Okay, so if you want to draw a line, so from, let's say from that point, somewhere like this, and if the angle here you want this to be 20. See, this is how AutoCAD works, from 0 to 20, 30, 40, and then up to 90. And if you want some line somewhere in here, then of course you have to take account from 0 from this point. So let's say, for example, this could be 110. So that's 20 there. And that's how it works. So this is anti-clockwise. So we could see this if I type units, and so there it is. So if I could actually direction, east is 0, north is 90, west is 180, south is 270. This is exactly what we just saw a minute ago. So this is what we just seen. And so just to show you, this is how it works. Yeah, so east, there it is, east is 0, north is 90, and so on and so on, unless you specify how the default software is. And also, if you want to make things work clockwise, so you need to select that. So that's how it works. So if you want to draw a line at a specific angle, you need to say, I want a line from that point. Let's say it's somewhere here. You see, right now, you got two figures there. One is 233.6895. The other one is the angle, which is 26, and it's being grayed out. So what AutoCAD is doing is, we could enter the value for the length of the line, but the angle is actually grayed out. And when you move your cursor, that's how it changes. So in this case, let's say, for example, we want to type in 250 for the line, 250, so that's the length of the line. And if you want to jump into the 25, so if you want to change 25, you need to press tab. on your keyboard. When you press tab, 25 becomes active, and then the 250 is locked, so I could type in any angle. So on the example I gave was 20, so I'm going to give 20 now. So that's 20. So if I go and check that, again I could go and look into dimension, angle between this line and that line, and that's 20. Again, I could actually put my cursor here and I could say I want to draw another line, and the length of the line is 100, comma, the angle of the line is 110. And if I go and measure this, it would be 110. That's good. Now, one of the things is I've talked about in the class is that the AutoCAD actually even see your cursor, which direction it is. So if I put my cursor this way, can you see that? If I actually, let's say for example, if I want to draw a line at an angle of 20, but this going this way, what I could do is I could say the length of the line is 100 and the angle is minus 20. And because what happened is, the reason I typed minus is my cursor was showing up, so my cursor was on the positive side, and because I typed minus, the AutoCAD calculated or assumed I would like to draw the line in the opposite direction, or in the opposite plane. Okay, so that's how you create lines and angles. In the next lesson I'll be talking about more. I'm going to actually, what I promised in the class is I'm going to make a video for how to use all the tools. So I think I will post that on the next video. And for next week, I'll be talking about, again, I'm going to do some projects. In fact, what I'll do is I'll create the tutorial or the exercises we did in the classroom into videos, and I'll post them. And hopefully that will help you. Thank you very much for watching.